Hi, Ian Shaw, joined by Ryan Marrinan. We're here today to introduce to you the new 3M Soup Sealer Solutions demo board. This is a stock item at RR Donnelly available to you now.
The objective here with the board is to show that with our current product line, we can replicate the OEM beads that the technicians in the shops are looking for, and how we can most effectively simplify what could be seen as a complex line of products.
And what we're going to do today is go through the process to actually set up best practices for setting up the demonstration, how to mask off this board, and then how to actually apply the beads conducting this demonstration and training.
Alright guys, so we want to talk a little bit about how you should most effectively be set up when you walk into a shop. Now keep in mind, this should be done prior to bringing over anybody from the shop, bringing over any managers. The idea here is we really want to keep it simple. The less time we're taking the techs away from their work, the happier the managers are going to be, because we're going to be making the shop more money. So there's a few things you want to get set up prior to doing your demonstration. First, we're going to talk a few tools. Alright, so we're going to want to have some mud spreaders. If you cut one in half, so you've got two of them ready to go, this is going to be the most effective thing for you, so you're not fumbling around with it later. If you take another spreader and cut it into like thirds, so you've got these smaller pieces, this is going to be an awesome tool for you to have ready to go. You're also going to want to have some full-size mud spreaders laid out. And then I've got a couple spreaders that we're going to show you some techniques on how to tool the product. And what I did here was I just used a simple hole punch, right? And I just went along and I punched these holes. You can do this at home while you're watching a movie, on a Skype call with your manager, kill some time, whatever you want to do. But having these ready to go and keeping them clean is going to make you a hell of a lot happier in the end. With that, acid brushes, have a couple of them and tape two together. This is most commonly going to be found in the shop. Technicians are going to do this, so if you have these queued up and ready to go, you're going to convey to the technician that, hey man, I actually kind of know what I'm doing here a little bit, right? For part of our demonstration, we're going to use the lift edge tape. Particularly here, we're going to use the 5mm. So if you don't have any of this, go ahead and order a roll. This one box should last you quite a while. With that, we're going to take some pieces out. We're actually going to trim off a large portion of it. You can see here what we're looking at. And we're going to end up using this for doing the run channel beads. So if you have those kind of trimmed up, ready to go, you can throw that portion away. You don't need it, and just have them laid out on the table. One other thing you're going to want to do is take some Scotch-Brite pads. If you don't have these, head over to the paint shop when you get there and ask them for 1 or 2 Scotch-Brite pads. You can take a razor blade, these cut really easy, have them in smaller pieces, ready to go. You can have them nicely piled up on your table. This is going to be a key part of your demonstration, and a really cool technique that you're going to show technicians that may not already know about it. We also are going to need some packing tape. We're going to show you that as far as getting the board nailed down. And then for the ripple bead, duckbill vice grip pliers. Okay, I know not everybody has any of these. There's a few ways you can get some. You can go online, you can go to Amazon.com, you can go to Northern Tool, Harbor Freight, any of the tool shops should have them, or just go ask a body man. Most all body men, at least somebody in the shop is at least going to have one of these laying around. Just ask me if you can borrow it for a few hours for your demonstration purposes, and then make sure you give it back to them. If you take a tech's tools home, you're not going to be a very favorable person in their eyes. One of the other things you want to have out ready to go, you've got your displays set up, ready to go. The tips that you're going to be using, pull them out of the box ahead of time. This way we're not digging in the box, right? We want to make this demonstration look as simple as possible. If you have any hiccups along the way, you're purveying complexity to the product you're trying to convert them to. So you want them to see, wow, that was really easy, that was really simple. So one of the things we're going to do is, prior to the demonstration, we're going to go through and we're going to clean out the tips. So if you've got the 8400 series gun, you've got some material plugged up in there, go ahead, take that apart. Mini screwdrivers, if you guys don't have these, some of the new hire techs, we've been talking about these in the classes. These are awesome to have. Body man, this is like one of the favorite tools you'll find in a body shop. Almost everybody has them. Again, you can get them online. Just type in pocket screwdrivers. Look for the flat blade type. They're like a couple bucks, for like 5 or 6 of them, and have them available. And they work really great for cleaning out these tips. If you have that cleaned out and ready to go prior to your demonstration, you don't need to change this tip out yet, but if this one's clean, it's going to be really easy for you once the demo starts. When it comes to the sausage packs, One of the things, if this has been sitting around in your car for a while, or it's been a while since you've done a demonstration, do yourself a favor. See how this is all hard in here? If you do this in front of the technician, then you got to sit and cut this up. No, that's going to be kind of difficult. So prior to the demonstration, go ahead and pull off your tips, trim this up, get a new tip on there, put it into your applicator, and then actually dispense a little material back into the tip and then put it down. When you go to do your demonstration, we're going to pull it off as if it was a fresh tip you just pulled out of the cabinet. It looks really easy for that demonstration. If you're using a new bag, this is a perfect opportunity to not have this prep because we're going to show them how we're going to cut that tip off right in front of them. It's going to be really easy and they're going to see how simple it can be. One of the other things you're going to want to do is, if you're doing a demonstration with cartridge applicators, the same thing. If you're using a used cartridge, make sure you pull the tip off, right? We've got all this dried, gunked up material here. Now, this cartridge is almost empty like this one is, okay? Go ahead and just toss it at that point, right? You want to get rid of it, grab yourself a new cartridge. One of the things you can do to help speed up this process is make sure you pull the bottom lids off your cartridges. That way, when you go to put them in during your demo, you don't forget about this and you're fumbling around. Again, fumbling around shows complexity and complication. We don't really want to be doing that. You don't need to puncture this top yet, but if you want to do that now, go ahead and puncture the top, screw this on, dispense a little material into the tip, make it look like you're putting a used cartridge on. When it comes to our two-part products, this is an awesome opportunity here, especially with some of our running at 8223, 29, and 8307. Go ahead and take these apart. Make sure that the rings and collars come off all your two parts if you're using used cartridges, because you don't want to show that. And then when you take these apart, let's make sure we take that mini screwdriver that we have, and we're going to dig out all the material and gunk that might be in that end. Okay? After that, we're going to take a new tip, we're going to put it on, screw our ring down, grab a manual applicator and just dispense the material back into the tip. Now we know that this is cleaned out and fresh, ready to go. When we actually grab it for our demonstration, we're going to be able to wing right through that and not have any problems with displaying that. With the applicators, if you have them laid out on the table, so as you're doing your demonstration, they can see what applicators you're using for the demo and you're setting it right back in there. A lot of times they're going to come back up afterwards. They're going to want to know what applicator you use for which process. And they're probably going to ask you, which tips go with which ones. Again, the idea behind this whole process here is walking into a new shop, converting them over to our products, or reinforcing our product line if you've got competitors in your marketplace that are really trying to put your foot in the door. Alright? So, as far as getting your table set up, that should be sort of the simplest way to do it. And if you have all that kind of queued up and ready to go, this is going to be a real easy process once you get to actually doing the demonstration in front of the technicians. Now let's move on to actually how we're going to prep the board and get that ready. Alright, so now we got our table set up. Let's talk about taping up our demo boards. What we're going to use for this is a great opportunity to promote our new tape. If you have yellow or green, you can also use these. For today's video, I'm going to use our new purple tape. Along with that, you're going to want some packing tape. This is going to be used to help hold the demo board down to the table. You guys got to remember one thing. Whatever you put this board on, whether it be an old hood, deck lid, or you bring in a table yourselves, try to get it as flat as you can. Some of the products that we're going to put out have a flow to them, and if it's not on a flat surface, it's going to flow off the board and make a mess all over the place. A couple other things that you're going to want to have is going to be some general purpose adhesive cleaner. If you're in a state where there's some VOC restrictions, specialty adhesive cleaner is a great opportunity to promote that as well. You're going to want some paper towels, and of course, you're going to want some gloves. Razor blade, and don't forget your safety glasses.
Alright, so let's get started with how we're going to tape off our demo board. What we're going to start with is we're going to use a 5mm lift edge tape. And in the previous video here, we showed you how to trim this up so you don't have so much excess. And what we're doing here is we're going to just tape off our 8307 self-leveling seam sealer and our 8329 controlled float seam sealer. What we're going to be doing is putting material in here to represent the locations that those will typically be used, which is going to be your roof ditch areas and sometimes your trunk trough areas. The key here is that we're going to be using this as a wall material around those two products. So as we tape this down to the board and we bend it around, we're going to start from one side, and we're going to use the razor blade to just make a small slit in the adhesive side of the lift edge tape and not the wall side. This will allow us to bend the corner more easily and keep a nice, tight, secure fit all the way around so that the material won't flow out. Once we make it all the way around the material, we're going to simply trim off the excess, double check, make sure that all the areas are touching so that we don't have any gaps or voids, and then we're going to move on to the next piece. Next up, we're going to tape off the area that we will be applying our sprayable seam sealer on. And as you can see here, I'm using a razor blade to make a nice clean cut edge. With our new purple tape, it will tighten cleanly, but with our other tapes, using a razor blade just makes it a little bit easier and makes a nice clean edge. So typically I use this no matter what tape it is that I'm using. Another thing to point out here is that I'm also putting little dog ears on the tape as we're going to be taping off these beads. And what that is just a folded over corner before I actually lay it down. This gives me a nice little lift edge so that once I caulk or spray the material out, I'm able to easily pull that tape off. And once we have the sprayable area taped off, we're going to tape off our two other inner beads where we'll be using some brush stroke techniques. And the key here is, guys, just the pattern's already on the board. All we have to do is just tape it on the outside edge. And it's going to just give us that nice clean look as we're building this. And again, as you're taping off the demo board here, we're working from the inside out. And the reason is that we're going to sort of build it from the outside in, with the exception of the sprayable seam sealer. And we're going to show you that in just a minute. Again, each time I put down a new piece of tape, I have a dog ear on one end, and that's the end that I'm going to lift from when we go to take all this off. It may help you, if you want, on some of these to put a piece of tape towards the bottom so that we're not dragging material accidentally out over the label image. And also along the top so that we're not running into other beads and creating a problem with dissimilar products coming together. This is going to give you just a nice clean look when we're all done with this board. Now if you notice, I'm rolling the edge on this outside bead. If you're not able to roll that edge in the corner, you can also break it there and make a nice clean cut. Just make sure that if you do that, when you lay down your next piece, you're going to put a nice dog ear on there so that it's easy to take off. And again, we're just following the outside of the image that's on the panel. We don't need to be exact here. Close enough will get us to the end result that we're looking for. The important thing is that we're not under taping the image. We want to, if anything, be just a little bit over taping, meaning that we're outside the image on the board. Now these two outer beads that we are taping off here currently are the representation of a replacement panel, such as a door or a hood, that we're going to be putting a bead on. And in the industry, the way this is done, that our best practice recommends, is that we would scuff it, tape it off, lay out the bead to the desired width that we were looking for, and then we will put our product down. Once our board is fully taped off, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put down a piece of masking paper Now I know you guys probably aren't going to have this in the back of your truck. That's fine. Once you get to the shop, you can go up to the paint shop. You can grab some off of their paint mask cart. It's not going to take much, just about a 2-foot strip. All we're looking to do is just cover this area so that when we apply our sprayable seam sealer, we're not making a mess all over everything. With the exception of this paper, this is how your board should be taped up prior to any technicians coming over and sitting down and watching your demonstration. So let's get started with the application of our product. First, we're going to start with the 8374 sprayable seam sealer. What we're going to do is we're going to spray out a good heavy amount on the area, and then we're going to take our notched spreader with a 1/8 inch notching on this. You can do this with the scissors, or you can do this with a hole punch. But what we're looking to replicate here is the lines that you'll find in some of the sprayed in seam sealers such as a Lexus or a GM trunk area, and show that with a little bit of technique that we are able to replicate some of these textures, that there isn't an applicator or a sprayable component on the market that can do this exactly. Very simply, we're going to accomplish this by showing them 3 easy steps. Now, when you tape off your board, if you run into a little situation like I just did here, don't worry about it. We'll be able to get to that. We've left the tape on there. We'll pull that off in a second. What we're going to move on to is our outer beads that represent our panel replacement. First one, what we're going to do is 5887. That is a 2-part epoxy. And when we do this demo, we're going to show you that we're not looking to take material off. We just want to kind of knock that top surface down. And then we're going to pull the tape off, making sure that we're pulling back against itself. And if anything, inward just a little bit, not outward. It will take 2 hands in some cases to help hold this board down, even though we have it taped to the counter. And in the corners, we're going to pinch off these areas, and this represents the replacement panel at the bottom. The bottom of doors and hoods and so forth need water to drain out, and that's why we pinch off those corners. Now on the other side, we're going to use 8223. This is a 2-part urethane. This is an alternative to using a 5887. Again, 3M best practice, we recommend 5887. We have a lot of very good reviews with customers with that, but we do have some that like 8223 as well. So by doing this, we're just giving them an opportunity to see the difference between the 2 products and how they're going to handle. Again, we're going to pull the tape back against itself. And this product will have a flow characteristic similar to the 5887, where the edges will just lay down and give you that factory look and appearance. Once we have the tape pulled off, we're going to pinch off those corners again to represent those areas on the panels where we need water to drain out and we don't want to trap it inside that bead. Now we're going to put in our 8329 controlled float seam sealer. And you can use this with the manual applicator. It is very easy to caulk out and it will flow. Follow that by 8307. Again, just get it caulked out from edge to edge. And we're just showing them the flow characteristics of the product. Up next, we're going to put in what I consider to be sort of a whipped looking bead, commonly found in a lot of sedans, particularly Ford. Ford also has this in an SUV. This is going to be accomplished by first getting material spread out, and then we're going to use 2 taped together acid brushes. And the motion here is an oval motion back and forth from tape to tape as we slowly drag downward on the board. Brush always touching the board. Next, we're going to put in the caterpillar bead. The key here is not to go too fast and just follow along the image. Follow that up with a different application of a brush technique. We're going to use a Scotch-Brite pad here. First, we're going to get the material laid out. We use a spreader to sort of knock it down. Again, we don't want to take the material off the panel. And this is going to be representative of sort of like your inside trunk floors, any exterior part of the panel where there's a lot of brushing that needs to be taking place, and it's not always easy to accomplish with an acid brush. And the idea with this technique here is showing them an alternative to application technique by using the spreader. And first we're going to go the long ways just to show them that you can get a continuous brush stroke, or you can drag it sideways and get the brush look going sideways as well. Once we pull off the tape, we're going to use that same Scotch-Brite pad to show how, in the case where the bead has a brushed edge to it, we're just dragging just a little material off that edge, not trying to remove any material, but this is how we get that factory look and appeal. After that bead, we're going to go back and try the caterpillar bead again, showing that 8310 has very similar characteristics to 8308 as a heavy-bodied seam sealer, and that's why we show this bead twice. Next up is going to be 4274. This is going to represent our sound deadening material that we find in floor pans and trunk areas. This is also going to take a notched spreader, a 1/4 inch. First, we're going to use a flat spreader to kind of just knock the material down. We want to make sure that our full repair area is covered. And then when we come in with the notch spreader, we're not trying to remove any material. We're just sort of adding the lines into it to give it that factory look. Once complete, make sure we remove the tape. Key here, let's remove the tape after each bead so that the material does not cure and we run into an issue of an incomplete board or messing around with dry material. Once you finish the bead that you have taped off, go ahead and pull the tape off before moving on to the next one. Alright guys, so the ripple bead, we're going to take our tip, we're going to cut it at about a 30-degree angle. This is kind of key here, and then we're going to clamp it about 1 inch back from that cut. We're going to leave it in an upright position. We're going to come back about a 1/4 inch. We're going to make one more clamp, and we're going to leave it in an upright position. Pretty important here because that's what we're going to use to lay it right onto the table, and that way we're not losing balance and we're not losing a seal. Then, using the technique of a push-pull or a drag and pause, we're going to apply the bead. First with the urethane. And then we're going to use the MSP next as a representation to show that we can do this with a variety of products. And again, the key here is we're pushing it into the substrate. We're not floating it on the surface. We can also accomplish this with our cartridge tube applicators. If you guys have shops that don't have the sausage pack offerings, this is accomplished as well with all 4 of our cartridges. And we're going to lay this bead out with all 4 of our colors. This is a great representation of our color offerings in our 1-part products. Also, all of our 1-part products are direct to metal, which is going to be key if the factory is calling out for a weld sealing or the shop is desiring a direct to metal solution to seam sealer. Once the board is complete and all the tape is pulled off, we can go back to our 2 original beads that we made and we can pull off that lift edge tape. Those are going to be dry. The urethane may still be a little bit gummy around the edge, but it will be dry. And you may need to use a small pick or screwdriver to help get those off if the material has stuck too well. And that's it.
Alright guys, so we got our board all completed here. A couple things I want to talk about really quick. Throughout your demonstration, if you ever run into a problem like you had noticed where I bumped into the 5887 here, it's a great opportunity to talk to the technicians about some of the forgivability of some of our products. So in this case here, it was already set up enough where it's not going to heal itself. I could go back, I could sand this off, I could hit it with some 220, and we could send it on down to the paint line, and it would be just fine. Or we could apply more material right over the top of this if you really happen to put a big divot in it. One of the other things I wanted to touch on quick here was, you noticed I did this board in this direction facing you. It is completely your call how you want to articulate this board and do your demonstrations. Typically I like to do it this way, but it's all going to be up to you. One other thing I want to talk about is this empty space down here. There's a few different reasons for that. The biggest one being right now is throughout this demonstration process, if you have technicians that say, hey, I want to see that again, or ask them if they want to try something, this is a great opportunity to let the technicians walk up here and give it a shot. While you're still there, they can ask questions and try the product, and then this board is going to be stuck right to the wall when we're done with our demonstration. The idea behind this board is it doesn't replace the wall chart, it reinforces the wall chart. So the wall charts still have all the information on them as far as product characteristics and colors and things like that. This is going to show that we can replicate an OA bead using these products as well.